Hey everyone, my name is Gal Shafir and I'm the head of global customer engineering for Siemplify at Google. And today we're going to talk about security orchestration, automation, and response, SOAR for short, and specifically about Siemplify. A quick word about Siemplify is really that generally Siemplify is a cloud-native SecOps suite or security orchestration, automation, and response platform. And really the main goal is for us to be able to allow security operations centers, or SOCs for short, to be more efficient in what they do and to be really the main SOC workbench for SOC analysts and for security engineers. Siemplify comes to deal with the different SecOps challenge, right? The first one being there's definitely too many alerts from too many tools that might not be configured correctly or not even talking to one another. And on the other hand, we have lack of people to deal with those security alerts. And then on the third side, we don't just have lack of people and too many alerts, we have a lot of manual processes and limited visibility to measure everything and to learn how to improve in the future. So we'll just jump to the platform here and we'll see what this is all about. So generally, Siemplify, as I mentioned, serves two different types of users. The first one being a security analyst, and those are the people that will go to the cases and escalate them and solve the cases and run actions and investigate. And the other type of people that would use the platform is the security engineers. And those are the people that will generate the content for the security analysts in terms of processes, playbooks, automated workflows that will help them do their job correctly. And in today's demo, we'll go around showing the two types of users and really how will they use the platform and benefit by using it. So we'll start our quick view before even jumping to the analyst or to the engineer. I just wanted to mention here that Siemplify has a lot of out-of-the-box content that comes with the platform. That includes a lot of integrations to different security tools that can just be plugged in with a click, so later they can be used in order to manually or automatically or semi-automatically respond to threats or investigate threats or enrich information around an incoming alert. On top of that, Siemplify brings a lot of out-of-the-box playbooks or automated workflows that we have built with our partners, security partners, around different types of use cases, really from simple things to the more complicated things around very, different types of technologies. So just wanted to mention that as well. I'll start by putting my security engineer hat on, right? And the security engineer essentially is the person responsible for building the content out, so later it'll be a scalable, repeatable process that an analyst will be able to quickly get the job done, right? So we can be more efficient, so we can handle the loads with the same amount of workforce that we have today in our organization. So as a security engineers, we'll start from the playbook page. And playbooks are essentially a drag and drop way to build those out. Now, when I'm looking at a playbook, it's very easy for me to see that it's a pretty simple user experience around dragging and dropping different actions. And I think this is really table stakes to being counted as a SOAR. We'll cover this, but then we'll talk about why is Siemplify different in the approach and what are the tools that we are giving to security engineers to help analysts do their job better. So essentially, every playbook will start with 3 simple steps. The first one being the yellow one in this example, which we call a trigger. A trigger can be pretty much anything. So you can say, hey, if an alert came from my SIEM or from my EDR or from whatever product, we can trigger based on that. But if it came from a certain network or if it came from a certain product that alerted about it or anything custom in the event, we can basically trigger a playbook based on. So this is pretty flexible. Second type of steps are called actions. And actions are basically made to conduct an operation. So they represent the Python code that will run in the background and essentially will run an operation such as enriching a hash with VirusTotal or maybe blocking an IP with my firewall that was found suspicious. So essentially those are the actions. As you can see, there's really a variety of the actions of the things that I installed from the marketplace. And to that extent, I'll say everything here is a drag and drop, very easy to use. But if I wanted to explore more, or I have the dev power to develop my own integration, Siemplify allows the more advanced engineer to go custom. And we do have an IDE integrated into the system. So everything that you install from the marketplace, you'll be able to see all the Python code that we bring out of the box, or just create your own integration with your people and developers. So going back to the playbook, we talked about a trigger. We talked about the different actions that we can take. We can see the green blocks here, which basically represent a container for action just to work with playbooks in a more scalable way. If there's a certain amount of actions that are repeating themselves over and over in different amount of playbooks, I can basically create a sub-playbook that will have all those actions with inputs and outputs, just easier for me to manage playbooks at scale. And then the last piece here is essentially the flow, which are basically decision-making steps. I can make a decision based on responses that I received from previous actions. For example, was something found suspicious by my threat intelligence? Or is this user an executive? Or is this operating system that I received from my EDR is a Windows 10? Or is this a server? Definitely things that are going to change my decision as an analyst. We can make those automatically and then escalate the case or close it as a false positive. And then the second type of question that we can ask here is just manual questions. And we'll see the analyst point of view in a second. But I can just ask the analyst, hey, should we contain the endpoint or not? Yes, no, notify my SOC manager, or no, escalate it to tier 3. And those are extremely flexible as well. Now, so far, we talked about playbooks, how to automate certain processes in your SOC, the fact that we can take some of the out-of-the-box content and then maybe fine-tune it. But I think the main difference here around this approach that Siemplify has taken here is not just the ability to automate a lot of things, which I think is really a table stakes to being counted as a SOAR today, but what happens after the playbook runs? And how can I make this data and this automated responses that I now receive from all of those different systems, how can I make it accessible to my analysts so when they open the case for the first time, they're not just flooded with more custom information and JSON results and CSVs thrown at them because they have more that they can deal with today. How can we really organize the important pieces of information that I want them to take a look at based on their role and based on the use case and best of our organizational best practices? So on top of every playbook, Siemplify added the capability to create a view. And the view is essentially really that, is what would be the layout of information that I want to present each one of my analysts when they open this. And I can create different views for different use cases because the way I want to present data around a phishing email use case is very different than an EDR or a malware or a ransomware or a failed login type of case. So we can create multiple views for multiple playbooks. And the nice thing here is that we can create different views based on the user that will open the case. So as a tier 1 analyst, I might care about different pieces of information to do my job the best way, rather than a tier 3 analyst that will probably be looking for more raw data and logs and more information that will help them do their job better. And this is just the default, but we can create custom roles here, like you see the Active Directory team or customers in case I'm a service provider. We can change those roles to make sure that we capture our SOC structure here. Now, an example of a view that will be around this malware alert is this. And you can see that as I click on this view for the playbook, we bring a lot of information and basically widgets that allow me to build the layout of the case for my analyst. So you can see we have some predefined or general widgets here, and we allow you to use HTML. So this is really getting you flexible if you wanted to design your own widgets and then use some custom information. So just as an example, and then we'll see the other side of the platform and how the analyst will actually take it and look at it, is, for example, if I wanted to create or use one of the out-of-the-box widgets, I'll be able to configure them. We can see that we have some out-of-the-box presets, but at the end of the day, it's the HTML code here, which we can embed with placeholders from the playbook to capture some custom information that the playbook returned. And essentially, we can even see an example of how this widget will look like once it's resolved. So as this playbook is running, I want to present this information to an analyst. For example, what's the status, OS version, last known IP address, and just the very specific pieces of information that my analysts would care about, and not just all the flood of information, and I can really present it to my analyst. You can see these are the placeholders. In a second, we'll see how those look like for the user that will consume all of this. So now I'm putting my engineering hat aside, and I'm going to put my security analyst hat on. Security analysts will spend most of their time in the case view. And in the case view, we'll have different cases coming in from different alerts. Some of them can come from a SIEM product. Some of them can come directly from an EDR or a phishing mailbox, or pretty much everything that generates alert and has an API can be consumed by Siemplify. The first thing that I can see is, as an analyst, I have my case queue. I can see if it came from different business units or different customers, if I'm a service provider. And essentially, when I open a case for the first time, there's a few pieces of information here that I can see. The first one being that I see the alerts, but I see that can be multiple alerts in the same case. The reason being is that Siemplify is smart enough to automatically group different events and different alerts in the same case automatically without the need of defining rules of correlation. The way that it works is we open a new case when there's an alert, but then for every new alert, what Siemplify will do is automatically take all of this information, try to figure out what are the entities from this data that were in use here. So for example, did I have IP addresses or hashes or usernames or paths or process names, whatever it is. And Siemplify will automatically extract those out from the data, making them objects. Whenever a new case will get into Siemplify, Siemplify will simply ask, hey, is there any new already existing case that shares one of those entities in common and came in a certain time proximity? If the answer is yes, Siemplify will automatically group those alerts together, so the analyst that is investigating the suspicious activity alert will just get more context into what they're investigating, rather than multiple analysts investigating multiple alerts and not really focusing on the threat. So coming back to the alert here, I see this alert that came in, suspicious activity by a high-risk user. I have my tags here. You can see that this is assigned. Essentially, as an analyst, I open this case for the first time. I can see that there was a playbook that was triggered for this alert. This playbook happens to be the one that we just reviewed together. When I look at this playbook, I can see all the steps that came in. I can click on them and really see all the raw data and JSON that they return. We always keep all this full information and responses. That being said, as an analyst, I don't really care about the automation that ran in the background. I care about the bottom line. I care about what happened, when it happened, who was involved, what do I need to do now? And because of those widgets and because of the content that was built in the platform beforehand, it's very easy for me as an analyst to answer all of those questions. So first of all, I see that the playbook is pending an action saying, hey, analyst, you probably should contain the endpoint. But before responding to that and making this decision, I can actually browse through the widgets that we've just reviewed together and see all of this information. In this case, our backend SIEM was Chronicle from Google. And Chronicle told me that there was a process launch, in this case came from CrowdStrike, and that there was a network HTTP, in this case came from Zscaler. So I understand really what happened. I understand that there's some sort of alert of something suspicious that happened. I also see all the enrichment that came back from the playbook now organized in those widgets. So as an analyst, it's very easy for me to see all the MITRE ATT&CK information that brought back to me. And I can see some of the recommendations from MITRE ATT&CK of what should I do when there's a user execution. Because Chronicle is mapped to MITRE ATT&CK, it's very easy for Siemplify to get this information. I can even click here, and because this is HTML, I can just drill down into more information. I can see my EDR information telling me that the endpoint is still active, it's not quarantined, and it's running a Windows 10, which definitely would affect my decision, right? If this was a server, I would probably escalate this case faster. On top of that, I have the enrichment around the user that was involved and maybe click on that file. I can see all the important information, for example, that this user is a contractor in the security groups, definitely will change my decision as an analyst. And I can see they're a US remote. I can see where they're coming from, what's their last login time. On top of that, I see all of the threat intelligence information, in this case from VirusTotal, telling me all the information, what IOC information here for all of those different entities. And I can drill down to VirusTotal here and just click on this button to see more information around VirusTotal. And then the last thing is really some drill downs with Chronicle, and there will be a separate session and demo around Chronicle and how that works. But essentially, I can see past information and some threat hunting information around what really happened. Is this just a one-off, or is this a phenomenon that happens a lot? Is this host involved just in this one alert that we've received from, in this case, CrowdStrike? Or is this host involved in other alerts over the last few weeks? For example, this one, like DNS queries or RDP connections. So this really helps me get more information around those different assets and those entities to see if I should expand my investigation, or should I just leave it at this case and just solve it this way. So at the end of the day, as an analyst, I understand what happened. I understand when it happened because I have the timelines. I understand who is involved. I see all the information. It looks like a contractor clicked a file. File seems to be suspicious. I see that the endpoint is running Windows 10. And now the playbook is just offering me, hey, dear analyst, should we contain the endpoint? And now it's safe to say for me to click respond and say, well, yes, I think it is safe to block this hash or contain the endpoint. And from here on, I can just make all of those decisions. It's easy to see that we have different alerts with different views here. Just a quick glance on a case from an Explore view will allow me to see all the entities that were involved in this case in a single view. And we build this graphical relationship map based on all the entities in this case. And it's easy to see the timeline of those different alerts. Every alert that was grouped by Siemplify will appear here by the chronological order that they were reported at. So if I click on the suspicious activity, I'll be able to see that this user logged onto this computer. And in this path, there was this hash that was found suspicious linked to maybe this process, right? And MITRE attack. But 10 minutes later, I see a very different alert coming in this case from Security Command Center around a new service account that was created in my Google Cloud environment from the same user that created this service account. So this is really telling me the story of what should I investigate and why those should be investigated as one threat and not just two individual cases that will go to two individual analysts. And then at the end of the day, it's very easy for me to just click on an entity here, for example, this hash, and I can even run manual actions from here. So if I wanted to block this hash in my EDR, I can maybe delete the IOC, I can maybe run some actions or queries to get more information, but it's easy for me to really get all of this. And everything that is done generally by this window, by an analyst, from the playbook, everything is being tracked and documented in the case wall. So everything that happens is automatically documented. We can add comments here, tag analysts, and really this is our place to collaborate, and even we have a live chat here that we can use in the cases to collaborate. The last thing that I'd like to show around this, and this is maybe the last problem that we discussed in the beginning, right? We have too many alerts from too many tools. So we talked about how can all of the tools can connect to one place and streamline those alerts in. We talked about a lot of manual process and talent shortage. So we saw how can we leverage automation and playbook to help us accelerate the process and deal with all of those alerts with the amount of people that we have today. And then the last thing is really how can we measure all of that to make sure that everything is just clear and visible. So because Siemplify essentially manages analysts and security engineers and the processes and the integrations, and essentially is the SOC main workbench and platform, Siemplify is able to capture a lot of things that are just not measurable today. So dashboards in Siemplify are able to show trends, show information around efficiency as well as security. So for example here, we can maybe filter this dashboard down around a business unit, but essentially I can see all the information like what's the SOC status, what's my mean time to triage for tier 1 around maybe a specific type of use case, how much reduction do we have in percentage with the Siemplify grouping, what are the top appearing entities, and those are drilled down. So we can click on some of them to really get more information, or even have multiple dashboards around SOC improvement, playbook efficiency, and more and more. And essentially, we can easily create a new dashboard widget, really choose the type of data representation, and then we can choose the fields, and then we can just add filtering to maybe measure only important cases for tier 1 analysts that were not marked as incident and are now in assessment. So we can get very, very granular around a lot of those things. At the end, the last thing here is really the homepage, where I can see as an analyst or as a manager all the tasks that are distributed. So it's very easy for me to see all my cases, all of my pending actions around playbooks, maybe create some change requests from here, announcements from my SOC, tasks around different cases. And this is really where I spend most of my time as an analyst, drilling down from the SOAR to the SIM and vice versa, and really improving the life of analysts, engineers, and making the SOC more secure and more efficient. With that, I want to thank you all for listening today. Till next time.